shifting, braking, integrated surface treatments, and a system that blows air at you and works with or without a power source. The Tacx Neo Bike was the first smart bike out of the gates. I rode it a couple years ago at Eurobike there on the show floor. Recently I've had the chance to test it a bit more in Zwift and test a few other smart bikes like the Wahoo Kickr, the StagesBike, and the Wattbike Atom. So I just thought I'd give you my quick thoughts here on how this guy rides. Things I appreciate about the Tacx Neo Bike are the shifting. The buttons are programmable. You can set it up for any standard number of chain rings and cassette combinations. There is a cool display that works with or without being plugged into the wall. It gives you a visual gear indicator as well as the standard metrics of power, heart rate, cadence, etc. when you're not connected to a device on Zwift. When you are connected to a device for Zwift or Trainer Road or what have you, the display simplifies to just show heart rate and your gear indicator. The bike is fairly adjustable, but there are a couple limitations, and my biggest beef with this bike is the lack of clearance between the legs. The frame is 6 centimeters wide down low, and then just underneath the saddle, the rail that supports the saddle is 4 centimeters wide, which is about the width of a fat saddle nose, and certainly something you can feel brushing against the inside of your legs every pedal stroke. I'm 6 foot, 180, got kind of thick legs, so maybe I'm not the best sample case. So I had a couple of my skinny friends get on the bike. They experienced the same thing. The bike rubbing certainly at that the saddle rail underneath the saddles, and then a little bit at the quads on the 6 centimeter frame. So that's a bit of a bummer. Another thing about the frame is that it's fairly compact. I ride a 56 bike with a 110 or 120 stem, and I can't match my position here because the front of the bike is as far forward as it will go, and it's still about 2 centimeters short of where I'd like to be. Not a big deal, but if you're gonna pay a lot of money, it would be nice to have your fit dialed. Now you can put on different length cranks, or put on different bars and put on your own handlebars, and then just put the levers on. So that part of adjustability is nice and will feel good to a cyclist who knows exactly how they want their bike to feel. The front end is novel in that in addition to the gear indicator, a little tray to put your stuff on, two USB ports, and an iPad or tablet holder, you've also got 2 little fans that come on once you start pedaling. The fans don't do a whole lot, but it's still better than nothing. One cool thing that the Tacx has with both this bike and its Neo 2T Smart Trainer are the surface controls. So you can set the bike to stutter, little micro stutters to replicate the feeling of riding outside over rough surfaces. So for instance, for cobblestones, for bricks, for dirt roads, each of these things has settings within the Tacx app that you can adjust from like 0 to 100 for how much of an effect you want. And it does feel fairly realistic, and just one more little bit of mental candy to keep you engaged with the game. Now, as far as the power accuracy, that's always a tough thing to test for. Testing for power meters is something I've done for years, and I found the best way to do it is by the way we govern here in the US, which is democracy. You ask a bunch of people and see what the masses say. It's not the best system, but it's the best that we've got. So here I've got a set of Garmin vectors that I've in turn tested against Shimano meters and SRM and Stages, and found them to be fairly reliable. So I used that to test against the Tacx Neo Bike. And the bike read a little bit high compared to the pedals, like 3-4% high. So like at 280 watts, this would read like, I don't know, 290 or so. One caveat there is that the cranks have inserts on both sides of the pedal spindle. So I'm not sure if that gives the rock solid connection that vectors need to have a more or less precise reading. So all that to say, I found the power to be ballpark within vectors, which I found to be a reliable source. In terms of stability, the frame is great. You've got 4 wide spread points that hold the bike down on the ground, even when you're really wrenching on it. The cockpit moves a bit when you're yanking on the bars to sprint, and that goes all the way up towards the iPad or the tablet holder, but on the whole, this is certainly as stable as any other smart bike that I've tested. So a couple points on training and racing with power in erg mode. The Tacx Neo is a bit more forgiving than some in terms of how tightly it holds you to the prescribed wattage when doing a workout. You can fluctuate a little bit, which I appreciate. When you fall behind on your cadence, especially at a high prescribed wattage, this acts like a lot of smart trainers in that it becomes almost impossible to turn over the cranks, as the power equation of wattage equals torque times RPM is taken very literally by these smart trainers and smart bikes. The Tacx Neo takes a number of seconds to realize that you're no longer keeping up with the prescribed wattage, and then it will deactivate the erg mode, again when in Zwift, and then reactivate it. I found it's not as good as the Wahoo Kickr Bike, which will realize that you fall behind within 2-3 seconds, will let you back off and then ease you back in. When the Tacx Neo restarts erg, there's a bit of a stutter as the resistance ramps quickly up. So my advice with this bike, as with any smart trainer, is if you're doing workouts with erg mode, just try to stay on top of your cadence as best as you can. When using erg mode for workouts, the shift functions don't work. So if you want to adjust your cadence, you have to just pedal more quickly or slow down, and the bike will adjust the resistance to that. Not a big deal, but it's something that being able to shift is something that I missed, especially when you're coming off of a high workload and going down to recovery. I like to be able to quickly put it in an easier gear, and you've got to just be patient and wait a few seconds with this. Bottom line, Tacx Neo Bike is a great option for training inside. I would love to see the frame be improved in a couple ways, notably the clearance under the saddle and the overall frame size adjustability.